He's back. It's not just the Maddie show anymore. Welcome back to the Yankee and the Brit. Thanks for holding it down, Maddie, while I was dealing with some family stuff.
Yeah, that's okay, man. I enjoy doing the solo shows. They're always good fun. I enjoy having you in the comments putting me off whenever you can.
Oh, and there was some random shit like I just bombed on Sunderland for no reason in the comments.
Yeah, I by that point I'd already covered the comments box with my show notes because I was too busy getting distracted by it. But I did go back and have a look.
Yeah, I bombed on Sunderland.
It's a good job nobody bet on that spread. They got shot on. Not great. Anyway, doesn't matter.
All right, so before we get into the games, though, some news today came out. We'll get to Belichick gone from the Patriots. I'm going to hit my personal elephant in the room. The Vikings are chosen for another overseas game, which we always get chosen for the overseas games, and it fucking infuriates me that you take a fucking game away from when the Vikings go over there almost more than anybody except for the Jags. It pisses me off, and I don't like what it does for the home Vikings fans. It fucking infuriates me.
Yeah, I do wonder the kind of the idea behind that, because it does feel like the Vikings come. Yeah, it feels like the Vikings come more often than most other teams do. Giving up an away game, like I know going on an away game, I know it's not great because of the time difference and the flight and everything. Like it's not amazing. Giving up one of your home games when you have that amazing stadium that is sold out every week, a really strong fan base, you're never going to move to the UK. Like the Vikings won't move to the UK. So I'm confused as to why it always seems to be the Vikings who are willing to give them up.
And the fact that there's players that come out and talk about how going over there fucks you up for 3 weeks. It fucks you up the week before because you're worried about the travel plans and all that other shit and getting your family there and all that. The week that you're there is really off. It's not like a normal football week for these guys, and they're very, routine guys. And then the week after, unless you have the bye, fucks up your routine for the next week. So it irritates the shit out of me that the Vikings are going back again, even though I did see not only the 3 times they've played lately, back to 1970s in exhibition games in Germany, Japan, and somewhere else. The Vikings are the only team undefeated overseas that have like 7 games overseas. But still, it's like, what about these teams who have never traveled over there yet?
I think everybody's come once now, but the Cowboys have only ever been there once. Oh, the Packers have never been, right. The Cowboys have only ever been once. Like, and the Vikings are back there year to year. Like, obviously, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I want them to be in the UK. But I want them
to go to the UK too. We'll switch with you. Fuck this. Like, and then what they like to do is drop those games at like week 4 and then give you a bye after them. Like, fuck you.
Too early.
We don't want a week 5 bye week. Go fuck yourself. So last time we went over there, we said to the NFL, because they give you a choice. No, we don't want it the week after, which was like week 4. The NFL's like, okay, you can have it week 6 instead. Like, fuck you in week 6 too. If we're going over there, we should actually get a little more say to when our bye week is. I think there should be some benefit to the team who goes over there to have a little more say in their schedule. Like, they should be like, okay, you're going over there. When would you like your bye week? And I'm not saying you get to pick exact, but then the Vikings could be like anywhere after week 8, or something like that. There should be some benefit to it for the team.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
England fans either. I don't want anybody from England like, fuck that Yankee dude, selfish cocksucker. But
it is difficult because it's been said that we're going to play Premier League games in the Middle East. We're going to play a Champions League in Asia, and it's like the European Football Cup thing. It's like that would never happen. So I do understand when American fans get annoyed at the games, their home team games coming over to the UK. There are pluses to this in Minnesota. I'm reading something by 967 The River, which I imagine is a Minnesota-based news outlet, who are reporting that.
Minnesota is known as the land of 10,000 lakes. So I don't know why his name's River. But okay.
With that, they'd be called 967 the River.
Right.
But they're saying that in the new year, the Vikings will become the most supported NFL team in the UK and Canada as well. And from the merchandise sales, like I can see that. Like I can see when I'm walking around, you see loads of Vikings merch. When you go to any vintage shops, there's always a Vikings. There's always Viking NFL shops in there. There's always Viking teams present. Obviously, I used to live where the Vikings like invaded and they like came from in York. And like I remember messaging you in New Year from a bar that is based on like the Vikings and has old Viking remains and stuff like that. So it does make sense that the Vikings do have an appeal in the UK. It does make sense because the reason that people pick their teams changes from person to person. And it could just be based on a name. Like, oh, the Vikings, they did so much in the UK, like I'll pick the Vikings and things like that. So it is a positive that you have this massive fan base, but it is unfortunate that you're giving up home games to come over there. Like, if you were coming over here for an away game, I'd be a bit like, oh, Jay, it's really good marketing, like all of that kind of stuff. But you don't want to give up a home game in that amazing stadium where the Vikings have a really good record as well.
And it's also coming in one of the most pivotal seasons in recent history.
Yeah, like this is almost like the season for the NFC North, right? It could be Kirk's last year.
This offseason is going to set the tone for the Vikings for the next 5 years. And it's going to set the tone if Kwesi keeps that job for a long period moving forward. What do you do now that you have $60 million in cap space, but you have a handful of studs that need to be re-signed? And even though our defense was playing better, we don't have really, besides Danielle Hunter and Harry the Hitman, we don't have like those marquee defensive players. What are you going to do, Kwesi? This is the offseason. So, like, this season is huge for the Vikings next 4 to 5 years, setting them up, right? What do you do with Kirk Cousins? Even though Kwesi said he has complete intention, he said yesterday, was to bring back Kirk. They just have to find a contract that works for both of them. Of course, you want to re-sign Justin Jefferson, but then you got Brian O'Neill coming up for a big deal, too, protecting the right side. And you got to figure out what's going on with Danielle Hunter. I truly believe everybody's reading more into the Harrison Smith thing. I really believe if Harrison Smith decides he wants to play again, him and the Vikings will come to an agreement on something that works for both of them for him to finish out as a Viking. So I'm not worried about him. But what do you do about Danielle Hunter? What do you do about O'Neill? It's not that O'Neill needs it right now, but you're going to have to figure out how to make that room with the JJ contract and the Kirk contract. And like Kirk said just the other day, it's not about the money, it's about the structure, right? That's more important to him. But he did also say a young coach once told him, it's not about the dollars. The dollars represent what you mean to the team.
Yeah, and like it is a massive year. Obviously, are the Vikings going to build this team around Kirk for the next 2 years? Does Kirk have 2 more years as a Viking and you build it around him with a quarterback below him who you pick mid first round? Well, not actually mid first round, is it? Where are you guys 11 in the draft order? So yeah, so just outside the top 10 in the first round. What's interesting about this London game as well is that the Bears are actually playing in London as well. So that's 2 NFC North games. Like the Bears have a home game in London as well. And personally, if I'm the Bears and I'm thinking of knocking down Soldier Field, I'm hiring out Wembley for the season. And the NFL season, I just hire out Wembley.
Panthers are already scheduled to go to Germany. They just don't know who they're playing yet.
Yeah, the Vikings don't know. Like none of the away teams have been scheduled yet. It's just the home games. Like that's really great for the Panthers. That's it. For teams like the Panthers.
If you're going to do it, I want that Jets game. Make Aaron Rodgers' ass fly to fucking England too. Fuck that. Like, let the fans vote which game. That's what the NFL needs to do. Let the fans vote which game is played overseas. There's enough time to put in a poll right now on NFL.com and let the fans start voting. and let us have a say. Fuck it. If you're going to fuck with our teams, let us have a say.
Yeah, I think that for teams like, it would be great to see Aaron
For
Rodgers.
me, it's the worst year. That's all. It's the worst year they could pick for me.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely not a good year for the Vikings. It is a good year for the Bears. It's a good year. Like the Bears, they also have a huge fan base over here. Like a lot of people started supporting the NFL in the 80s. Like that's when it started to get big. So the 85 Bears, like they're a massive team
Did you
over
see
here.
Justin Fields goodbye?
No, is that it?
No, but he did say, if this is my last rodeo with you guys, I want to thank so-and-so. I want to thank you guys, the media, for making my job more difficult. He said that for making my job more difficult. He thanked the media, and he went on this little tour of on his exit interview of saying goodbyes in case this was his last rodeo. So even he's not sure if he's coming back.
Yeah. I think with Eberflus there, he might be staying. I think they're happy with the season, which is crazy to me. But yeah, for teams like Carolina to go out to Germany, you're like, yeah, that's great for them. Like, get out there.
It's not great for Germany.
Well, those bastards have had 2 great games like 2 years in a row, and the
I'm
UK
just saying, if you're going to send games over there, why aren't we sending our best games then too? Like it doesn't.
No, well, to be fair, Germany have had Kansas City, Miami this year.
No, I mean even
and the year
London,
before that,
though, like
they had Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. Yeah,
I don't care if you're playing in Mexico or Canada. If we're playing outside the U.S., why aren't we sending our best product?
Yeah, I think like you want to keep the best product in the state. I don't know. I think I would.
Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen every year. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, England every year.
I think the Brits are kind of already so invested in American football. Like there is a huge market for American football here that you could kind of send us whatever trash you want. Like I think Germany is like a building market and all of that. The Germans actually play more American football than we do. But yeah, we probably watch more American football than they do.
Yeah, I tried to watch their professional NFL league over there, the NFL like Germany, and it's like watching D3 college football. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's not great, but they play more. Like they do have, it's all development.
Yeah, but
I
watch
like
5 years old. I wonder if any of these guys will ever make the NFL. And then I'm watching it, and I'm like, none of these guys will ever make the NFL. But
yeah, they would be a D1 college instead.
Shout out to the XFL. Shout out to the USFL for merging under their first season as the UFL and working with the NFL while doing this, which you and I talked about. This is the smartest thing they can do. They are working with the NFL. They are going to give players a chance. And there is players out there who just need experience and to get film, right? Because there's always that undrafted guy or that 7th round pick that nobody's ever fucking heard of. And then all of a sudden you're like, who's this guy? He can fucking play. And then you realize, they were playing on shit state university with no talent. So his talent didn't get to show, but some scout somehow peeped this guy, right? Like out of nowhere. And you're like, well, this kid can fucking play and nobody's ever heard of him. So I think that's great. I psych myself up like, I'm so going to get into the USFL this year. I am going to be, and then I try to watch it and I'm like, this ain't the same, but
haven't got it yet.
I'm not going to hype it up like I'm actually going to be invested this year because I'm going to be realistic, but I hope that I'm a little more invested than I was last year.
The smart organizations who have quite top heavy caps. So people like the Rams, who I look at, who had that fuck them picks mentality for a while. The Cowboys obviously have a very top heavy cap. Will do well to watch like in the USFL and get their players from there rather than worrying too much about hitting free agency. You watch what's it called? The United Football League, the UFL.
Yeah, UFL.
You watch that and you go, okay, I can give this guy minimum contract to come up to the NFL and I can see that he can play. I think it also will do a lot for the offensive line issues. Like this year, offense has been much slower than we thought it was going to be. It feels like we were moving towards a more offensive league and we were hitting 40 to 38 games and stuff like that. But the offense is taking a downturn, and that's because the offensive line doesn't play as well. So getting guys experience out of college who, instead of burying them on the practice squad, for your offensive linemen. Now I think they'll move to the United Football League, and it'll do really well for the NFL. We've spoken loads about the need of a developmental league for the NFL. What I would like to see is these players that are perennial practice squad players, they go down to the United Football League now, and the practice squad becomes not as good, but those guys on the practice squad, those guys who have been on the practice squad, they move down.
Their season's over while the other season's on, so they can go play and still come back to your practice squad. If they're working with the NFL, you should be able to keep your future contracts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And any team can sign any other player off a practice squad, so it's still fair, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I also think there should be some form of, so what they do in Spain with football is like Barcelona have a B team. So Barcelona B that play in the second division.
Anybody who
watches
watches
football,
hockey, that's exactly how it works. So
right,
you'll understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So Real Madrid have a B team, so they play in the second, third division. So it's all their young players. And I really do think that NFL teams, so like the Cowboys, is there a UFL team in Dallas like that you could partner up with? Is there another one in Texas?
Houston.
Yeah, or do you take? Oh, right, okay. So Houston, probably take the team in Houston. So there is a team in Alabama. So Birmingham have a team. So you take the Birmingham team and you partner up with them, and they become your developmental thing. And
I agree with you, but there's not enough teams yet, right? So
yeah, exactly. Like
it's just going to be a big pool of free agents almost for the NFL to go and look at. But
yeah,
guys like Jake Browning should be able to go play quarterback there and still be under contract, if you ask me, with the Bengals. Go get more experience. You proved you can play. Now go get more experience.
Yeah. Do the Cowboys send Trey Lance down to the?
See, that's the thing. They should be
UFL, but they keep Trey Lance on the books. But they should send Trey Lance down to the UFL to get the experience, so we can actually watch guys like that play. Like I think it's really important. Those guys who obviously you don't send your starting quarterback down.
No, but there should be guys each team can regulate to go play in that league.
Yeah.
So, like the NBA has the G League. It used to be the D League, and then developmental, and then Gatorade sponsored it. So it's the G League.
Mm.
The Milwaukee Herd, the Oshkosh Herd it's another city in Wisconsin, are the Bucks minor league team. So they can send their players down to development and play for the Herd.
Yeah.
And then when they want them, they can pull them back up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they can get experience instead of just being the 18th guy on the fucking bench. They can go down and play. Yeah. And so the NFL needs to figure out that with the UFL.
It also makes that league way more sustainable because these NFL organizations, they can fund a minor league team. Like it shouldn't cost them against things like the cap if they have those players. It shouldn't cost them in financial fair play laws and all of that kind of thing. But like Jerry Jones can afford to fund a team in the UFL, and it will drastically help the Cowboys long term. Like guys, imagine Brandon Powell having the opportunity to go and prove that. Like you put Brandon Powell and KJ Osborne on the same UFL team, and who comes out as the wide receiver is going to be Minnesota's third wide receiver in the next season. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking at, you know.
And there's a few teams fans who will know this name, but a lot of people don't. Kyle Sloter is a guy I really think could have played quarterback in the NFL and never got a shot between Denver, Minnesota, Carolina. Where else was he? Maybe New York. Like he bounced around. I really think everything we've seen in the preseason is this kid can fucking play. But he always ended up on a team with a quarterback he was never going to usurp, right? Like he was never going to usurp Cousins. He was never going to jump over a Russell Wilson or whoever else he was sitting behind. Mm-hmm. But I really think that young kid had a shot of being something. And I think if a team could have said, hey, let's send Kyle down to the USFL and get him some fucking more work, because backup quarterbacks don't get reps. They don't. People think they get reps in practice. They really don't. The starters never give up those starting reps. So, these guys aren't getting developed as well as we'd like. It's easier to develop other positions, too. And so I think it would help a lot with a league that really needs quarterback play.
Yeah, really needs sustained backup quarterback play. The starting quarterbacks in the NFL, I still believe, are some of the best that there's ever been in terms of
Yeah,
a
but
generation
there,
of
20?
a generation of quarterbacks.
Is there maybe 20 guys in the NFL you look at and go, "Oh, sorry about
Yeah.
that.
No,
I
you're
thought you
right.
were
So
done. Go ahead. I cut off completely
no,
the
no,
whole
no.
time."
You're fine. You're fine. So you have 20 quarterbacks. You're right. You have around 20, and you say, okay, anybody below that is no good though. Like the drop off is wild between those top 20 and the guys below that. It finishes with guys like Baker Mayfield, who we'll talk about in a second. Who else is in that kind of realm of 20th quarterback? But even guys like Justin Fields, I guess, are kind of in the lower echelons of the number 20, and you're like, like, would you really play like that often? But if he went to the UFL and got some reps where he says, pass the ball against weaker opposition, he starts to see the field better. His clock gets better. Like, he doesn't need to take off and run. You almost say, Fields, you're not allowed to have more than 20 yards running. Like, you can't have more than 20 yards rushing in a UFL game. Like the coaches, because they want you to develop a certain skill, you know? So there's loads of players in that 20 to 32 who could become so much better if they just had more time.
No, I agree, because we can go through the list, and I don't know the exact number, but somewhere between 15 and 20, we're going to start going, yeah, that guy can't win a Super Bowl, even if you put the best players around him, right? But there's a lot of guys in the NFL, if they have great teams, will be able to win games and give you a chance. It's just that there's not enough quarterbacks for as many teams, and that's always the argument against expansion, right? If we can't find 32 quarterbacks, how do we find 40? Maybe if they start developing people, we'll get closer to that.
Yeah, and you also have guys like Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz who played this week, and you go like, right, I would like to see if they can start, because it looked like both of them looked like they should have been starting in NFL teams this year.
If
like when I watched them, I was like, if Sam...
No, go ahead. Sorry,
you go.
I
was saying, like, if some... You go. I'll stand back because it's my delay. It's my delay.
It was just, all I was saying is if Carson Wentz had a better attitude, we wouldn't even be talking about him. But you're right.
Yeah, and if Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz could have been starting for the New York Giants this year,
and the Jets,
like, watching them both play, and the Jets, yeah, they would have been the best options for the Jets. They would have been the best option for the Chargers when Justin Herbert went down. But they could have started the season for the Giants. I think they're both better than Daniel Jones, for example. But obviously, they've paid Daniel Jones, so they're not gonna have that there. The Commanders, Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, although Sam Howell did have a great start to the season, I imagine those two would have been better over the course of the whole season. The Patriots, Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, they both could have been starting. So if they had the option to go down to the UFL last season and show that we've still got it, we were just in bad situations, they wouldn't be buried on these good rosters as excellent backup quarterbacks. We would have had them in the NFL starting this season and therefore had more leagues. So we've been harping on about this for a long time, the need for developmental leagues. I'm so glad that the NFL is finally getting something done.
Yeah, well, you had a good segue right there. Talking about the Patriots, Bill Belichick's out in New England, and I really believe it has a lot to do. Like, it may have happened anyway, but I think they rushed to the decision because I really think Vrabel's going to New England after Vrabel got fired in Tennessee.
Yeah, I spoke about this last night, how surprised I was that Vrabel actually got fired in Tennessee. Like, I just assumed when I first read the news, I was like, oh yeah, that's obvious, he's going to the Patriots. Like, when I first saw the news of Vrabel's leaving the Titans, I'm like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. Like, he's going to the Patriots. Right? I just assumed that that's what was happening, but it wasn't. Vrabel was fired outright, and he's going to sit on the market. He's not going to sit on the market for a long time waiting for the Patriots to come and get him, while there's excellent jobs in Washington, in LA. I'm not sure how long he'd sit there for. Like, Vrabel in Washington would be excellent. Vrabel in Seattle would be amazing. Vrabel in Atlanta, that would be great. Like, there's plenty of jobs for him. What about if the new opening in Alabama came for him? You know, like, there's plenty of places for Vrabel to go and be a tone setter. So I agree with you. I think that the Patriots needed to get this done quickly.
I think that they've already talked. Vrabel already knows the job's his, but now they have to go through the Rooney Rule. So they can't just hire him today. So I'm sure he already knows he has the job, but yet the Patriots have to interview minority candidates and do all of that stuff to be in compliance with the league, where you used to be able to get a waiver like, hey, I already know who my quarterback or my coach is, and then the NFL would give you a waiver. They don't do that anymore, so you still have to do it. And not that this is super NFL related, but I wouldn't be shocked, and this is my call, Alabama's next new head coach is Pete Carroll.
That's what I've been commenting on a load of YouTube videos recently. I was like, oh, what if is Lane Kiffin the guy who coaches at USC? Or have I got that totally wrong?
He used to. Now he coaches at Florida Atlantic. Or wait, no, he's at
oh, right, okay.
He's at Southern Miss, I think, right now. But yes, he was the guy at USC.
He was at USC.
I think he's a Gamecock, but I'm not sure.
Right, okay, because what I was thinking is if Lane Kiffin is still the coach in USC, like Lane Kiffin, who was the offensive coordinator for Nick Saban, becomes the head coach at Alabama, and then Pete Carroll goes in and finishes off his career in USC, that would have been perfect.
Ole Miss,
but yeah,
I had to look. It's Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, yeah, Ole Miss, yeah. Pete Carroll. I'm so surprised that Pete Carroll's on the market. I could really see him going back down to college.
I called that, really by the way.
Me. Yeah, you did.
I doubt it'll happen, but they need to fire Pete Carroll. So I guess I kind of called it, but I was like, I didn't think they would have the balls to do it.
Yeah, there's now so much coaching talent that's just out there because you forget that the like offensive coordinators that are going out. So Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions, which I think that would be in the realms of the Eagles losing Gammon and Steichen if Ben Johnson goes and gets a head coaching job somewhere else. Is it Bobby Slowick? Is his last name Slowick? The offensive coordinator for the Texans. Like he might be in the running for a head coaching job. And then you have Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh, like all waiting for these jobs in the NFL. And you're like, shit, like somebody's going to have a total change in the NFL this year.
There's a chance it's Mike Tomlin. I'm not saying it would be, but there's a chance that he's on the market.
Yeah, because what's most surprising about Pete Carroll's job is that Pete Carroll is technically still an advisor in the Seahawks. But as I said on the show last night, I can't see him being hands off like in the.
No, that's the nice way of hiring somebody. You move them to another role.
Yeah, you push them into the boardroom. Yeah.
Right. Well, like Ted Thompson, when the Packers got rid of him as GM because his time had run out and he was old and he wasn't doing as good. They hired Gutekunst, and then they're like, Ted Thompson's now the president of football operations, which was like Ted Thompson's no longer doing shit, but we're still going to give him a paycheck in an office.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't see Pete Carroll being able to have his hands off. That's not who he is.
No, and it's not that like other coaches. He's a great coach. Yeah. He just ran out in Seattle.
14 years. 14 years in one organization. Yeah, 14 years in one organization when you're 72 years old. Like, I don't want to say that age is anything. And I don't think he's the reason that they're not in the playoffs this year because we said like they started off not playing like a Pete Carroll team. Like, it's not an energy issue with Pete Carroll. Like, we said this isn't Pete Carroll, and the second week they came out and they like look like a Pete Carroll team again. He's got the young defensive guys like Tyreek Woolen and Devon Witherspoon were playing excellent football. So it's not Pete Carroll. Like, it is just a case of there's all this coaching talent that's there at the moment. Let's see what we can get.
They need an offensive mind. Like, defense isn't their problem, and no shot at Pete, but they need like one of these younger offensive gurus to come in and switch it over because they don't really play a super modern style of the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously Pete Carroll loves run the ball first. He likes to base his thing on defense, which is totally fine. But I could see Seattle is a really interesting place for somebody to go and coach. Seattle is an excellent opportunity for anybody who wants to go and coach because you've weirdly got this strange quarterback situation of Geno Smith, who looks okay, Drew Lock, who's looked okay, and a mid-round first draft pick in a year where there's like a possibility of now 6 quarterbacks going in the first round.
And Mel Kiper's finally got Penix going in the first round, even though that fucker still got Drake May above Jaden Daniels, but that's a whole other podcast. But here's a thought for you. and I put this out there in one of the football groups, and they thought it was nuts, but I don't think it's that crazy. Jim Harbaugh to the Seahawks so he can stick it to the fucking 49ers twice a year for firing him.
Yeah, so I was thinking about Jim in Seattle, and I think it's a good move because one, it gets him outside of the AFC because he's already said he feels quite uncomfortable coaching against his brother. So I guess that gets him out of the AFC, which is good. He wants to be in the NFC. I like the idea that he comes off as not petty per se, but he holds a grudge, right? Like he remembers when people chat shit about him. I think about that interview that he did with Colin Cowherd, where he was just he just didn't want to be there, and he basically was telling Colin to fuck off with his body language and stuff. Even though Colin Cowherd's been a fan, he just doesn't like what Colin Cowherd is about and stuff like that. So I think back to that. So I think it is there. That is an option for him. But I personally, I think if with the Bears going with Eberflus, which I think is fucking ridiculous, Jim is going to be the Washington Commanders coach for me. It puts him in close proximity to his brother, his mother and father, puts him in the NFC organization that needs to sort itself out.
I think it's the least
nice clean slate to build a culture. The Commanders.
Yeah, Josh Harris already has proven that he's going to be a meddling fucking owner. So who wants to play for a meddling fucking owner? You bring in the fucking, what kind of dysfunction do you have if you're bringing in your old exec from the Philadelphia 76ers in basketball? Fucking strange. And then you hire Rick Spielman to make it look not as fucking weird, but it's just, you're making those hires so you can meddle in shit and not look as horrible.
So,
and they don't have much talent. The talent level is not there. Washington, to me, is one of the least attractive teams.
I think Washington is a team that can turn itself around quite quickly. Ideally, they would have either Chase Young or Sweat, not have traded them both away for second round picks, but fine. And if you're a Jim Harbaugh coming into an organization like Washington, then like we said on a previous podcast, guys who come up from college have 3 years where they nail the draft because they know that class, they recruit that class. So I think the Commanders could be changed quite quickly. They obviously have the second pick in the draft, so there should be your quarterback for the future figured out. And I think I think it's about the location for Jim as well.
He's a West Coast guy. I mean, he's besides Michigan, all of his coaching stops have been in California.
Yeah, but also at the same time, all of his family are in the Michigan, Maryland area, which is in relatively close proximity to DC. So I don't know. Jim could go anywhere. Really, couldn't he? The only job I don't see him taking is Carolina. I think that's the one job that he's nah, that's too much for me.
If it wasn't for David Tepper, right? Because you got a young quarterback and you can build, but yeah, David Tepper's another one. Who wants to? I mean, there's only 32 jobs, so somebody's going to take it. But if you're one of those coaches who can pick your destination, why would you want to coach for an owner who, in all the sports teams he owns, has fired 7 coaches in the last 3 years?
Yeah, you don't want to be with Tepper, and the fact that they traded around the first overall pick, they've traded away their first round pick, so you don't get that first round pick. How many first rounders did they? 2. So you don't get a first round pick for 2 years. That's a team that is devoid of any talent. I think you do have the most cap space, but if you're a college coach, do you worry about catch? No, I could see a Vrabel in Carolina doing quite well. That would be, Vrabel would be interesting.
Harbaugh's been in the NFL, so he could make use of that.
Not for quite a few years, but
no, but yes, he understands how it works. So the free agent thing
to
him wouldn't be a foreign idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I just think I would rather him in a place where I've got draft, and no draft. I'm so surprised that Chicago didn't just back up a truckload of money to Jim Harbaugh and say, sort us out, whatever. And they decide. It's weird that they've made the Eberflus call so early, is what I think on the Bears. also very, very strange. But I think Vrabel's destination, I would like to see him in Atlanta, but I think he'll be a Patriot. Obviously, I think that's the destination he's going to be in.
Your buddy Skip Bayless has Belichick going to Atlanta.
I think that would be an interesting destination for him. Like, he need to get some quarterback play pretty quickly, which he's not been great at drafting previously. Mac Jones, by the way, great candidate for sending down to the UFL to get some reps, and we can actually see what Mac Jones can do.
Might take that Washington job.
I think if Jim Harbaugh doesn't take it, I think it's Belichick's to have, definitely. I could see Belichick in Seattle, but if they've just moved off a 72-year-old coach because he's taken them too far, do they then hire Bill Belichick? You know what I mean?
Which would be wild.
72-year-old
Carroll's first coaching job in the NFL was with the Patriots, and then he got fired.
72-year-old, 72-year-old defensive coach. Do you then move to Bill Belichick? Like, probably not. Does Bill Belichick want to go to LA? I don't personally think it suits him. Like LA, like the LA Chargers. I don't think it suits
be
Bill
the job
Belichick.
you want.
Yeah.
You got a quarterback, you got a high draft pick, you got Derwin James on the defense, you got Khalil Mack. You have pieces to turn that team around quite quickly.
For me, I want a culture setter there. We don't know how long Bill Belichick's going to continue coaching in the NFL. I think he wants to go to a place where he's already got some pieces, which in the Chargers, you do have all the pieces, but the culture is just not there. Like, I don't know, like a Pete Carroll in LA, like that makes loads of sense to me. Pete Carroll going down to the Chargers.
Josh Herbert or Justin Herbert might be the type of quarterback that you can treat like he treated Brady and he'd be okay with it. He might be the kind of guy you could come in and just tear him off in a fucking meeting, and Justin Herbert would be okay with it.
Yeah. Do we see Arthur Smith again in the NFL? What do you think?
I think he'll be a coordinator
in the NFL. I think he could go take whatever job is open. So if the Clemson job becomes open because Dabo Sweeney goes and takes the Alabama job, I could see him coaching in Clemson. I could see him coaching Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin gets the job. Like, could I see Arthur Smith in Michigan if Jim Harbaugh moves up to the NFL? Like, maybe. Like, I think that would be more the job for him back in college.
Michigan likes to hire Michigan guys.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the coordinator in Michigan who's probably going to take the job if Jim Harbaugh goes.
Yeah, the dude who filled in for him with his 5-game suspensions. Yeah.
Yeah, and won all the games as well. So, I could see Arthur Smith going down to college, I think.
All right. Should we talk some wild card weekend games?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's look forward to the future in terms of the immediate future, not the long term with all these coaching issues.
All right. Well, Saturday we start off with the Cleveland Browns and Footsteps Flacco traveling to the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are 2-point dogs at home, so the Browns are favored on the road. In the last 8 wild card games, when the home team is a dog, the home team covers. I think it happens again. Give me the Texans +2.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting game, right? Like, they're two teams in two totally different positions, right?
I watched that interview with CJ Stroud, and I don't know why, but I just think that kid's going to come out and win.
Yeah, it's like the Texans have got their quarterback of the future. They've got their head coach is going to be there forever. I think Kevin Stefanski could claim coach of the year if he hadn't got it a couple of years ago. But they've got their coach of the future. CJ Stroud is the quarterback of the future there, like, no doubt. Wide receiver talent in Nico Collins, Tank Dell when he's not injured. Like, their offensive line looks relatively solid. Devin Singletary seems to have picked up a step again. Like, they're a team on the up and up, it feels like, the Texans. Whereas the Browns are in this weird position where I keep on thinking that the Browns have had a really shitty season, but are 11-5 and are a good team. And I can see them making the AFC Championship game. But in terms of their long-term development as an organization, which you don't really care about if you're the Cleveland Browns, because, like, have they ever been to a Super Bowl? I'm pretty sure they're one of the only teams.
Jim Brown.
Right. Okay. With Jim Brown is when they last went to a Super Bowl. Like, they give up everything to get to an AFC Championship game. So it's confusing. They're two very confusing teams for me. One on the up and up, one on the right. Let's just see what happens this year, because like it feels like they've played shit and their long-term development is terrible because Joe Flacco is now their quarterback. But Joe Flacco looks great. Great connection with Amari Cooper as well. So I don't really know where to go in this one, but I agree with you. I think the Texans at home, decent defense, although I am worried about the fact that they gave up 188 yards to Jonathan Taylor when the Browns are coming into town as well. Give me the Texans to cover. I think they'll win this game as well.
So this is just my prediction on the awards. Offensive Rookie of the Year, CJ Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive Rookie of the Year, Will Anderson. Coach of the Year, DeMeco Ryans. The fucking Texans mop up on the season awards.
Yeah, so I wasn't a fan of their trade up for Will Anderson, and in terms of process, I'm still not totally
7
cool with
sacks,
it,
44 quarterback pressure.
Yeah. Like in terms of process, I'm still not a fan. But as we've said a million times, sometimes the process can be wrong, and you've still got the answer right. Like that's okay.
I don't have a problem with them trading back up for him though, because I think half the team wanted him at 2, and half the team wanted CJ Stroud, and their way it was like, let's take Stroud, and I'm going to trade back up and get the guy the half the team wanted at number 3, and then you move on. So I think for them, I get what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing, but for them, I think that was absolutely a good process, because first year you got your rock at quarterback and you got your rock at defense, and now your team can just move forward from there.
Yeah, I think they have quite a few holes to fill is why I wanted that. But then when you hit Tank Dell, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, so it turns out they didn't. So it turns out because they got DeMeco Ryans, it turns out they didn't have that many holes. And because you hit Tank Dell in the 3rd round, who was a guy that we said was going to be great in the NFL, a great deal in the 3rd round as well, then okay, like, because then you've got your elite wide receiver, because Nico Collins has always been a number 1 wide receiver, kind of like 1.5 kind of talent. So when you have Tank Dell there as well, like they're a great team that are really building for the future. Whereas on the Brown side of the ball, like, they're not building for the future. Like, their future is mortgaged in Deshaun Watson, who has been awful when he has actually played this season and looks to have an injury problem as well. And the name of their backup rookie, DTR. Yeah.
DTR.
DTR. He hasn't looked good either. As well. And obviously the Browns have an elite offense, so we'll see how this young Texans team copes with that. But I think the Texans on the up and up. Give me the Texans in this game.
All right.
Yeah, I also find it strange. Sorry, the Browns are obviously the most betted team to win the Super Bowl in the NFL as well, which I find an interesting stat, because Joe Flacco in the playoffs is a different fucking quarterback, and that defense is amazing, and defense wins championships. So I think this is going to be an incredibly close game, a great game to have first up.
And then the second game, if you don't have Peacock, go out and get it. If you don't want to go out and get it, well, then find some way to stream it online, because you can if you don't want to pay for Peacock, but we won't go any farther and get ourselves pulled.
Yeah.
The Miami Dolphins traveling to the Kansas City Chiefs. It is going to be the coldest game that the Dolphins have ever played. The Dolphins have not won a game below 47 degrees in the playoffs since 1970 something, and they haven't won since 1974, and they haven't won a cold game in 7 years. So the Dolphins are already the odds are already stacked against them. They haven't been playing great at the end of the year. They're going into Kansas City, where Patrick Mahomes has never played a road playoff game, which is wild if you think about that in itself. The Chiefs are favored by 4.5 at home, and I think they beat the I think they beat the Dolphins by at least 7. So give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Dolphins play, what is it, -22 wind chill or something crazy like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking
Obviously,
right now, but
need to convert that to Celsius. But anyway, it's mental. Yeah, very cold game. And it's a crazy thing to think that the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game where it's below that temperature since 1970. That's wild. It's not wild when you think like if they play their playoff game in Miami, then it's not going to be that temperature. If they play a lot of playoff games, it's not going to be that temperature. And also, they had a stretch where they were one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like when I first started really watching the NFL was around the Dolphins going 1-15, 16-0, 0-16, sorry. So yeah, but Tyreek Hill going in for a revenge game. Tua still not showing us if he can get it done on the big stage. And as I said in the show, the show yesterday, is Mike McDaniel just a really fun coach who we like to watch, or does he play winning football? Like, what do you think about that? Because I don't know whether it's not a take that I'm taking. It's just a question that I've had on the brain for the past week.
I think Mike McDaniels is a great coach, and I think the problem is he was never a coordinator. So people are still trying to question why are they losing? Why is this happening? I think that Miami is just not as talented as people think. And when they beat your ass, they beat your ass, which makes you think that they are. But without Tyreek, they don't play very well. Waddle doesn't ever seem to step up and take over a game when Tyreek's out. Like if Tyreek's there and being double covered and that kind of shit, well, then great. But it seems like they go as Tyreek goes, and that becomes a problem. Like you need more than just your number one receiver to help you carry a team. And I think that's where the big problem comes in Miami. And I think we as fans and people who talk about him are more to blame than Mike Daniels. I think we all pump them up so fast. And then when you go back and look like, oh, they can't win road games. They can't win close games. They don't do. And then so I think we actually did Mike Daniels a disservice by pumping that team up so fast.
Yeah, there was a game where Waddle took over when Tyreek Hill wasn't playing. So I'm just looking at that. Yeah. The Jets game where they beat the Jets 30-0. So against a decent offense where Jalen Waddle had 8 receptions for 142 yards. But apart from that game, I totally agree with you. And it's very easy to say when you don't have Tyreek Hill, like your offense doesn't play well. It's like, well, yeah, fuck. Like we've built this whole offense around Tyreek Hill. So
I get that, but
that makes sense.
The Vikings won, 4 of their 8 games without their the best receiver in football and without their starting quarterback. Like, you got to figure it out at some point, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the Dolphins have also had some shocking losses.
When Dak got hurt, Cooper Rush came in and held down the fucking fort. Are we even comparing Cooper Rush and Tua? There's no fucking way, right?
People were at the time.
Are we comparing, like, Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins to Tua? I'm not. Tua's got him beat. So there's something like Miami needs more than just the one-hit wonder. Like Tyreek's awesome, but you need more than that moving forward. I think, like I said, I think we just crowned them too quick. I think they're still going to get better next year and the year after, and I think they'll keep moving in the right direction.
Yeah, the amount of injuries on the defensive side of the ball is something that people don't want to talk about until like the end of the conversation. Once they've got their headline out the way where it's like Miami falling apart, Tua not the right guy, can Mike McDaniel coach winning football? The sun makes Miami soft, like all of that kind of thing. Where it's like, well, look at the amount of injuries on the defensive side. They don't have a pass rusher, you know. There's a fun adage, very racist adage, but it was a Victorian adage from like a British imperial times. And it reminds me of what a lot of commentators say about Miami, like in the sun. And it's how the southern sun makes the Indians weaker than the strong northern Europeans. Like, which is a crazy fucking crazy thing to say that the sun is what makes you weak. Like, it's an insane thing to say. So the way that some people talk about like the weather and this Miami team, it just reminds me of that weird colonial mindset. Whereas I think what makes them weak is the style of football they play and the amount of injuries that they've got, right? Like the amount of injuries that they've got on the defensive side of the ball is no joke. It's also very interesting with the commentary around both of these teams, Miami and Kansas City. They both have the same record. Like they're both 11-6, and the Eagles as well. The Eagles 11-6 as well. The kind of commentary about the Eagles, the Chiefs, are totally different to what the commentary's been about the Dolphins until that loss against the Bills, and they have the same record. And if you look at the Dolphins' losses, some of them are horrific, like really bad losses. Give me the Chiefs in this one because of their experience. They have Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and should they rely on their run game? Yes, you are not the Kansas City Chiefs of all. Run the fucking ball down Miami's throat, and they'll win this game and cover the spread.
All right, we're talking about spreads. We're going to talk about a fucking huge spread on Sunday. Pittsburgh Steelers going to the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are favored by 10, and there is a chance it is a fucking snowstorm.
Well, then I would never pick a spread that's favored by 10 in a snowstorm, number one. Number two, the Steelers play tough football. Their defense looks okay at points. Like one of the leading defenses in turnovers this season. I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering my stats correctly. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But
sorry.
They
There's snow on Saturday, but chances of 40-mile-an-hour winds on Sunday.
That's even worse. Like Josh Allen overthrows his receivers for interceptions quite a lot. So like a 40-mile-an-hour wind hopefully will take his interceptions just out the back of the stadium instead. So maybe good for Josh Allen, actually, as long as he's throwing in out with the wind, not into it. But yeah, look, the Steelers, I think that kind of plays into the Steelers, and it plays into what the Bills should be doing. As I said on the show last night, the Bills should be taking the ball out of Josh Allen's hands and using Josh Allen like as a crazy wild card guy who comes out and makes these Superman plays every now and again. But for him to be your lead rusher and passing for 369 yards, that's not what I would want in Josh Allen, because when he's passing for 369 yards, you also get the 2 interceptions. You also get and they're bad interceptions as well. They're interceptions in bad places on the field, like red zone interceptions. You don't want to walk away with no points from that situation, especially in playoff football. They want to run the ball with James Cook, play with their defense that's playing really well at the moment. I'm going to take the Steelers to cover the spread in this one, especially with the weather conditions. But the Bills are going to win the game.
I'm the same way. I think the Bills win, but I'm taking the Steelers plus 10 because that's a wild spread, and I think it's going to be a whole lot of running football in that game if we have 40-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah,
I don't get this idea that a lot of people are saying of like the Steelers could get blown out by 30 and still be happy to make it to the playoffs.
Manny,
it's like no.
I could honestly, and people can crush me in the comments, go ahead. I could honestly see the Steelers stealing this game.
I could see the Steelers stealing this game. I think the Steelers winning this game is more likely than the Bills beating them by 30.
I agree with that too.
Number one.
I do think the Bills win, but I think if you're going to take it to a running game, I actually think the Steelers got the advantage of the two running teams. And Mason Rudolph has been playing like he forgot he was Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, like, this doesn't look good for Kenny Pickett, like, coming back into the league. Again, another one of those guys who the UFL needs to see. Like, all three of the Steelers quarterbacks could do a go and play in a season in the UFL to see if anybody's any good.
I wouldn't even want Kenny Pickett as my backup.
Really?
Dead serious. I have not been a fan of his from the jump, though. So
yeah. I think he's probably gonna. I think he probably would have done better than, say, like an Easton Stick in
Nick Mullins wins you more games with the Steelers than Kenny Pickett.
Really? I like the take.
400 yards a game. He just throws interceptions along with it.
The craziest interceptions.
Yeah, but he still throws for 400 fucking yards and 4 touchdowns. Like,
yeah.
Kenny Pickett throws for 122 yards and a tud. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I wonder if the tag of the first round pick weighed too heavy on Kenny Pickett's shoulders, because the only thing that Mason Rudolph is doing is what we've all been saying all year about the Steelers: air it out. George Pickens is great. Pat Freiermuth is probably one of the best tight ends in the league. And Johnson is a great wide receiver as well. You have Jaron Warren coming out of the backfield, who's an excellent receiving running back. Like, there's no reason for the Steelers to be this dry on defense. Even if Matt Canada didn't put any motion in, just run 4 verticals down the field with Pat Freiermuth cutting over the top, and you're still going to be better with the Steelers because of the way that they've constructed that roster. So that's all that Mason Rudolph's doing different. I don't think that Mason Rudolph's a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett has got freaked out about throwing interceptions when you're the first round pick and all of that kind of stuff. So
maybe,
and also Kenny Pickett played his entire season.
I think that's what you're saying, maybe. But you have to say that right now, Mason Rudolph's a better quarterback.
Yeah, well, yes. Also, Kenny Pickett played his entire season with Matt Canada, and the first time he didn't have Matt Canada, they threw for like 300 yards and looked excellent. And then he got injured with 2 concussions. So, like, maybe maybe Kenny Pickett without Matt Canada might have been a bit better, but we'll see. Bill Belichick officially leaves. The Patriots is up on my phone. It was rumors before we started, and now
when we came on, Robert Kraft was doing his live press conference when we came on.
Yeah, in the press conference, he's commemorated the end of an era with Bill Belichick and stuff. So Bill Belichick officially leaves New England. But yeah, I could see the Steelers taking this one. Their offensively, it's improved in a way that nobody's giving them credit for. But I also don't think that the Steelers should be happy that they've just made it if they get blown out by 30. Because what's that like? What have you achieved there? You've achieved nothing. You've just shown that you were kind of had an easier schedule, luckier to get into the playoffs, like all of that kind of stuff. Like, enough games fell your way that you get there. I don't think that's a fair assumption of what the Steelers have actually will have achieved if they then go there and get blown out by 30, because they should do better than that.
Not that they have control of this, but it doesn't help that TJ's not playing.
Yeah. And they did need TJ to play in the game to get them into the playoffs. So it's not the same as like Laporta not playing for Detroit, for example, where you didn't really need to play your starters as you're going through. But TJ missing for them is a huge deal. But their secondary, they're weirdly put together secondary of like mismatched players who they've just found out of nowhere. That's great for them. Like, I think the Steelers could go and take this game, but I'm still going to take the Bills, but I'll take the Steelers to cover the spread.
All right. Well, moving on to the 3:30 game, my time. So if you're on the East Coast, that's the 4:30 game. The Green Bay Packers traveling to the Cowboys. I won't harp on this too much because I don't want to piss off Maddie, because I've had a habit of doing this. This may be the first time ever that I can remember that I cheer for the Packers in a playoff game, because I don't think the Cowboys deserve the 2nd seed. I think the refs fucked everybody, fucked up the whole playoff season. I still think the Cowboys win, but I'll be cheering for the Packers. Cowboys are 7-point favorites.
That's crazy. That's crazy. The Cowboys had all 3 teams that are in this conversation, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Lions, had the entire season to get it done as well.
And the Lions did everything they did to get it done, and the refs fucked them.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming the Cowboys. The refs fucked them. And Maddie gets a little personal because Cowboys fans are getting eaten alive on social media. So I get it, because even Maddie and I were going back, and Maddie never gets mad, and he goes, "This is starting to piss me off." And I'm like, bro, we can quit this conversation, because that is not what I'm trying to get at here was like.
Yeah. It's like any nice assessment that you make of the entire situation of the Cowboys' whole season gets whittled down to one play, where if it went the other way, the Cowboys would have also been fucked. So it's just like, oh yes, like fair. Like I said on the show last night, I was like, Detroit can feel annoyed at the fact that they aren't the second seed. But like they should feel pissed. They should feel all that way. That's
if
fine.
you're Green Bay, are you not pissed that you're not playing Detroit instead of Dallas? And then the Rams get to play Detroit instead of going to, like, it changed the whole fucking seeding. So like I feel like a lot of teams have the right to be pissed right now.
Mm-hmm. I just think that I don't know. Like you beat the best of the best to make it to the Super Bowl, don't you? Like that's like you beat who's in front of you to make it to the Super Bowl.
Anybody who watch sports, your road makes a difference. So if my predictions come right to get the NFC Championship game, all you got to do is beat the Packers in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, like yes, that's.
And like I said, it's not a shot at the Cowboys. It's not. It's the refs. Like, these refs fucked it up so bad. And I was partly joking about cheering for the Packers because honestly, if both teams could lose, I would be fucking great with that. But that can't happen. But I am definitely taking the Cowboys, and I think they beat them by more than 7.
Yeah, is that the spread? 7?
Yeah.
So the Bills Steelers is 10, and the Cowboys Packers is 7.
Yeah, because didn't you know? Listen to all the talking heads. Jordan Love has proved he's a Hall of Famer. He's the 3rd Hall of Famer in Green Bay. That's what all the talking heads and the Packer fans are saying.
Josh Allen is the best quarterback of all time and never throws an interception that matters in his entire life is more the issue that I've got with that. Yeah, sorry. The Packers have done a great job to make it. Now the Packers, opposite to the Steelers, they can make it here, be happy that they've made it to the playoffs and get blown out by 20 because they're the youngest team in the NFL. They're making the building blocks. That's great. What I do worry about with them is Green Bay is not a great place to be if you're a young star. These young stars that are playing great, when it comes to free agency, how well are they going to be able to hold on to them? But at least they've got them for another 3-4 year run stretch, all on rookie deals. So you can add players in free agency where you're missing gaps in these young players. So great job by Green Bay for making it to the playoffs. Jordan Love is a solid quarterback. Sorry, you go.
No, go ahead. I was just going to go through some stuff. I'll wait till the end. Sorry.
Yeah, cool. No, that's fine. Jordan Love is a very solid quarterback. And look, I think it's like if you compare his stats to Aaron Rodgers' first stats, and it's like you can't say after one season that a guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. Because when we looked at Dak, like it was, oh well, this guy has never thrown an interception. Like has the longest streak of not throwing an interception as any rookie in the history of the league. Dak Prescott could still be a Hall of Famer, but we don't know that now, and we're only 7 seasons in. So, like there's so much road to being a Hall of Famer. There's so much road to this. Jordan Love is in a nice system. Matt LaFleur, I think, has given himself a lot of credit as a coach this year because I think a lot of people were saying, was it just Aaron Rodgers? Was it just Aaron Rodgers? Like, I think Matt LaFleur's given him a lot of stuff as a coach this year because he's created an offense where Jordan Love can be successful. His receivers have caught the ball this year and looked really good as those young receivers. Situationally, on the defensive side of the ball, they're poor, and that's where the Cowboys kind of eat. Like the Cowboys against defenses that are poor are going to rack up 35, 40 points on you. Do you think that the Jordan Love first playoff game in Dallas can score 35, 40 points against this Dallas Cowboys defense? I don't think so.
No, the over-under is 50.5. But okay, so let's go with the Packers, though, just this year. So game 1, they beat the Bears. Game 2. So they lose to the Falcons. They barely beat the Saints. And the only reason they beat the Saints, and everybody can say this because it was 1 point, but because Derek Carr got knocked out because he was balling at the beginning of that game. Mm-hmm. They get smoked by the Lions. They get beat by the Raiders. They get beat by the Broncos. They get beat by the Vikings. That's a Kirk Cousins injury game. They beat the Rams. Okay. But in that game, they were playing Brett Rippon. Okay. Like, let's just be real about that. They lose to the Steelers and Kenny Pickett. They beat the Chargers by 3, but the Chargers have been like awful this year. So they sneak one past the Lions. Okay, that's a good win. Divisional game. You guys know each other. They beat the Chiefs, but every team except the Bears in the North have beat the Chiefs. And they needed the refs to help them beat the Chiefs at the end of that game. They barely beat the Panthers. They beat up Minnesota team, and then they go in and beat the Bears at the end. Who the fuck have they beaten? Like, what game makes you think like the Packers are really any good? That LaFleur can coach, not you. I'm saying to these people in the media, like, where is that signature win that makes you go, okay, these guys are for real? There isn't one. They just beat the teams they should have beat, and they lost to teams that they probably should have beat.
Yeah, they have. Did the Vikings finish with a winning record this year?
No, 7-9.
Okay, so they had 3 wins against teams with winning records, and one of them is the Rams with Brett Rippon.
And one of them was winning records thing. With no,
you can look at the winning records
call on the Chiefs.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one of the other ones is the game against the Chiefs. So I guess the Lions game is where you put that down and say, okay, like that's their win. And
that's a divisional game, though. You know how that works. Like, you could lose to the Commanders and like go, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, and it's not the way that they won. It's not that they won or lost in these games. It's the way that they win or lose. They put themselves in harm's way a lot of the time by poor situational defensive football. So that's a trend. Like when we talk about certain teams and having these runs, so the Rams have a very similar like kind of record, kind of similar stats around like winning, losing teams, but they played a lot of games without their starting quarterback. I think they had 4 games without their starting quarterback and 2 or 3 other games where Matt Stafford's shoulder was healing.
And we know for sure McVay can coach. We don't know for sure that LaFleur can coach.
I think I have confidence in LaFleur as an offensive coordinator. I don't have confidence in LaFleur to completely overrule what's the guy's name?
Joe Barry.
Is it Brady or Berry? Berry.
I
don't have the confidence in the guy to Brady's the coordinator for the Bills, isn't he? Berry is the defensive coordinator for the Packers. I don't have confidence in LaFleur to overrule Berry and say, no, that is the wrong thing to do in this situation. And it's not that. Look, Berry has like created a decent defense at times. Like their defense is fine because they get to the situation. And then he whiffs like in the situation. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So they have talent. And he tends to put it in the right places in non-important downs and non-important parts of the game. And then it's just awful in the most important part of the game. Like third down conversion, not great. I can't remember their stats on third down conversion on defense, but I'm pretty sure it's bottom 10 in the league. Red zone defense, not amazing. Like, look, I don't ever want to jinx the Cowboys, and the Cowboys could come out and be the fucking Cowboys and lose against the Green Bay Packers in a game that they should win, where they have more talent all over the field, but they just fuck around and just Dak throws an interception. There's a fumble in there. It all starts to wheel down. Like
Big Mike is going to have you guys ready to stick it to the team that fired him.
Yes, and that would be great to see because I don't feel like we've had a coach that has got us like kind of hyped up and ready for the first quarter of football since before Jason Garrett. So yeah, not sure, like let's see what happens. Yeah, so let's see what happens with that. The other worry that I have is that fucking Jerry Jones coming in and saying that we don't know if Mike McCarthy, we'll see how the playoffs go as to whether Mike McCarthy will be here next year. And it's like, okay, cheers, Jerry. Like, so it's like, and then he was saying about how he spoke to Bill Belichick in 1990. And he said, if you ever have a position open for me, like, let me know. And Jerry Jones was saying how much he thinks back to that day and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, fuck's sake. Like, Bill Belichick is going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys next year, isn't he?
No, him and Jerry will never get along. Never.
I think they do get along because Jerry Jones has come out and said how fucking great Stephen Jones is. Yeah, maybe. For 2 years, I reckon they can do it, like with Jimmy Johnson and Bill Belichick as well. So obviously the Cowboys curse has been lifted because Jimmy Johnson is now in the Ring of Honor in AT&T Stadium. So and they've made up, and Jerry Jones apologized. So maybe that lifts the curse and we see what happens. But
and those guys
I'm
seem
taking
to
the
love
Cowboys
Mike
in this one.
McCarthy, and they're going to want to stick it to the Packers for him.
Yeah. Look, I think Micah Parsons is going to want to just kill anybody in his way, like to start the game.
Here's the worst thing. I think you guys could beat the Rams in the playoffs too. So if this seeding wouldn't have fallen so fucked up, I think you could have beat anybody they put in front of you. But thanks to the refs, now there's this half the league is going to be hanging on. What happened in that game for the seeding.
Yeah. I think it's the blaming of the Cowboys. I'm
not the only one.
I know it's not just you, man. I know it's not. I know it's not just you. That's why I think it is. I wasn't pissed off at you in that moment. I was just like, oh God, I'm just sick.
No, I got it. I completely got it. That's why I was like, we can just stop this conversation right now. Like, I know we can come back to it later, but there ain't no point to be upset about some shit that neither of us can control. Like, no, I've been there. The Vikings have had me so mad before.
Yeah, I just remember just going like, oh, that's so annoying. Because very rightly, whatever analysis any Cowboys person does, like after that point, it's like the refs fucked the Lions though. And I'm like, I know, like the refs did fuck the Lions. Like I was on the show yesterday. I was like, the Lions have all right to be upset. Like they have all right to be upset. But this is the way that football is. You have the whole season to get it done. Like, let's see how it goes.
They had the right to be upset. If they're smart though, they're over it.
Which, do you want to junction onto the Lions game, or do you want to keep
the next game anyway?
I think it is the next one. Cool.
It is. Rams are traveling to Detroit.
They're not
Detroit
over.
Are 3-point favorites at home.
Yeah, the Lions aren't over it. They proved that they weren't over it last week. Like Dan Campbell proved he wasn't over it. I really went off on this at the start of the show.
Can I just say this quick? This is another thing that proves to me Dan Campbell is not a great head coach.
Agreed.
You let it get to you in the game, because I don't disagree with your arguments that they had two other chances. My argument is they should have never went there. Beyond that, it did.
Yeah.
The second you got that fucking penalty, I texted the group chat, and I'm sure you saw it. This is why Dan Campbell's a fucking bonehead, because he didn't take the extra point when they got knocked out of or they got that 5-yard penalty. Right there is when you take the extra point and you go to fucking overtime, even though you feel like you got fucked. He did not make a good coaching decision. He let his emotions get to him, and he tried it again. And then the Cowboys give him a fucking reprieve and go, here's a third shot at it, and he doesn't kick the extra point again. Yes, that is completely coaching failure, and you can argue it should have never been there, and I agree, but it was. And you made bad coaching decisions, and then you make the worst coaching decision the week after, because you decide you're going to go fucking play everybody to prove a point when there's nothing you can really do, and then Sam Laporta gets fucking injured. Amon St. Brown is holding his fucking ribs at the end of the game, and Reynolds gets hurt on a fucking return. Like, that's the kind of shit that makes me go, see, that's why Dan Campbell shouldn't be a head coach.
Yeah, and it's I think people saying, oh, the Vikings made a few dirty hits, and I'm like, it's a fucking divisional game in the NFL. Like, really? The Vikings aren't going to roll
That's
over.
Crazy. Okay, I've never even saw that come up.
Yeah, there's a few, like, I can't remember who it was. It's about the Amon-Ra St. Brown hit.
Somebody can tell me if I'm wrong, but I have never felt the Vikings to be a dirty team.
No, I agree with you, but I don't think it is dirty hits. I'm not really sure there is such thing as a dirty hit in a divisional game.
Yeah, if you go for the knee on purpose or something, I could see that. But yeah.
Last game of the season, because he's holding his ribs, so he's clearly been absolutely nailed in the ribs. And I can't remember who it was. I can't remember if it's a player for the Lions or it's somebody very closely linked to the Lions.
How about you blame Jared Goff for hanging him out over the center of the fucking field?
Yeah, he shouldn't have even been Amon-Ra St. Brown. There was no reason for him to be on that fucking field.
That's a fact.
Like the reason that he was on that field, I believe, is due to this, and I've been saying it all year, this culture that Dan Campbell has fostered, that they are the underdogs and everybody hates them, and the entire NFL is against them. And obviously last week, the week before last with the Cowboys, that's obviously not going to help that fucking mentality. But then Amon-Ra St. Brown gets snubbed by the Pro Bowl, which we spoke about, where if there was a position for slot receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown would be in the Pro Bowl. But that's not the way that it works. And in the NFC, the Pro Bowl is like CeeDee Lamb, who had a better season than Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, who won the TD, like most passing touchdowns, and I can't remember the other guy. They need more wide receivers in the fucking Pro Bowl though. But just because of the way that the Pro Bowl is now, with all the skill games, they only take 3 wide receivers for each side. So Amon-Ra St. Brown gets snubbed by the Pro Bowl, comes out and he's whinging about being snubbed in the Pro Bowl and saying like, oh, it's ridiculous. I'll show them. Show them in the playoffs. Why do you need to show them in a Week 18 game where, all right, yes, if they won and the Cowboys and the Eagles lost and one of those teams did lose, then they would be the second seed. So I get it. Like, I get playing, but they played the whole game. And I think that's crazy. And I think it's part of this idea that Dan Campbell has fostered, where it's like the whole world is against us. And the way that we show that they're against us is by coming out and proving everybody wrong. We're the underdogs. Well, sometimes you're just way better than the opposition. So if you just play sensible football, you don't have anything to prove against the Vikings with Nick Mullins Week 18.
And can we, like, Amon St. Brown had a couple hundred yards more than Justin Jefferson, who missed more than half the season. So, like, you really think you should be whining about the Pro Bowl? Is this what we're talking about? Like, yeah, you're a great receiver, and the Pro Bowl has half voted on by the fans. It's all pro that matters, and he's not even close to being the first or second best receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, so it's CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Mike Evans, and Puka Nacua. So CeeDee Lamb, I think, like, obviously a Cowboys fan, but I think he was the best. Like, when Dak Prescott is throwing to CeeDee Lamb, he has the highest passer rating in the NFL. He has the most yards per completion in the NFL. He has the most yards after the catch in the NFL when Dak Prescott is throwing to CeeDee Lamb. So in terms of duos, like, I think they're a really solid duo. You have AJ Brown, who went for over 1,500 yards, even though he only got 300 yards in the past 5 games, I think. Mike Evans, who's the touchdown leader in completions in the NFL, and you have Puka Nacua, who just broke the rookie record for receiving yards, for the most receptions and for receiving yards.
No, he didn't beat Justin Jefferson's receiving yards, did he? I don't think he did.
I thought he got 2 last week, but you can have a look.
You can keep talking.
Yeah, cool. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, I love you. Like, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. He basically helped me win, like, the fantasy football thing this year. Was a great pickup for me in fantasy football. Sometimes he won me games basically by himself this year. So great fantasy football pick, but not in this NFC when they're only picking 4 wide receivers in the Pro Bowl. He's not better than any of those 4. His only claim is maybe AJ Brown, but AJ Brown is better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. As well. So this culture that they've fostered in Detroit, I think, is incredibly unhealthy for going forward. And Dan Campbell shouldn't even be in the conversation for head coach of the year for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jefferson has the overall record. Kuka beat the rookie record.
Right, okay. Yeah, against some guy from the Tennessee Oilers in 1970 who played in a 14 game season, but that's against 6 other teams in the league or something like that,
right?
Isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
no, it's
like, people say, oh, well, it doesn't count because he has an 18th game. And it's like, well, his quarterback it was Brett Rippon thrown to him for 2 or 3 of those games. So let's chill out a little, shall we?
Yeah, and I feel like the Lions are building chips on their shoulders that don't need to be there. And I think they're in their own head too. So like I said, I got the Cowboys winning by 7 or by more than 7, but I think the Detroit Lions in this game, even though they're favored by 3, I think they're only favored by 3 because it's a home game. And I think the Rams win this game. I think the Rams go in and beat Detroit. Detroit's in their head, and the Rams are going to come and take advantage of them. Also, I think McVay and Matt Stafford are going to be like, watch this. We're going to show you why we made the better trade. We got a Super Bowl, and now we're going to beat you in your own house.
Yeah, I love the drama that we get of this and the storyline. Like, I think this is the game outside of the Cowboys game, obviously. I think this is the game I'm most excited for this week. The Rams against the Lions, because I actually think the Rams are possibly the second best team in the NFC right now. Like, I'll still give the best team to the 49ers overall, but I think playing right now, if you go through the Rams team, you have their coach, you have the way that they've came into the playoffs. I think they're probably the second best team in the NFC right now.
I think it's probably the Cowboys, but I still think that you could lose to the Rams, if that makes sense.
I think it's the Cowboys. I think the 49ers are first in the NFC, and then I think the Cowboys at home are the second best in the NFC, but the Cowboys away from home, I don't think are. Whereas the Rams,
you don't have to worry about it. The refs made sure you have home games all the way to the 49ers. So, and
thank you very much for the scripting.
The 49ers, you get a home NFC Championship game.
Yeah. So at home, obviously very happy about that. But the Rams are the Rams, I think, are probably the best team, the second best team all round in the NFC. And I may say that they would also be the second best team if they were in the AFC as well. Like, do I think they lose to the Ravens at this moment in time? Yeah, probably. But I think they beat the Bills. I think they beat the Chiefs. I think they beat the Dolphins. They beat they beat the Texans. They beat the Browns. Like, I think as well. Like, the Rams are scary.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't know about that Texans pick. The Texans, I think, are sneaky to be in the they're like a sneaky team that could make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I just the Rams, like the Rams offense, when their offensive line is not like terrible, because they do have one in every 5 games, it looks like their offensive line has the ability to just vanish and just not be there at all. And then you have Matthew Stafford with no offensive line. It's just not a good look. But Kyren Williamson is possibly paid the best running back football in the NFL this year when he's not injured. Puka Nacua is unbelievable. What a great pick from them. Great proof that the NFL Combine is a terrible way at looking at the athleticism of a guy coming into the NFL, because I think he finished like 93rd out of wide receivers, but is actually more than athletic enough and all that. Cooper Kupp as well, Tutu Atwell over the top, like, look great. Matthew Stafford should never touch a quarterback sneak ever again. If they've got Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz had 17 rushing plays, 17 rush attempts.
Did you see that dive into the end zone? That's the same exact dive that he sprained both of his ankles on for Indianapolis, and he does it again for the Rams.
I all of a sudden love Carson Wentz. Like, his throw to Puka Nacua for that touchdown is an excellent throw. Like, they have another weapon to use in Carson Wentz. It's not just they have a good backup quarterback. They have another weapon to use in Carson Wentz. So in 3rd and short, Carson Wentz is coming out for me to QB sneak, because Matthew Stafford has one of the worst QB sneaks in the entire league. But I think the Rams are a better roster. I think Dan Campbell has fostered an unhealthy amount of chip on the shoulder, and he's got probably their three best receiving options are now all carrying injuries. He said that Sam Laporta, he's opened the door to Sam Laporta playing in the first game, but he's hyperextended his, what's he done? He's hyperextended his knee on a bone bruise, which is what Travis Kelce did, which is a 2-week injury usually, but for the playoffs, people come back faster.
I am not an NFL athlete, and I fucking sprained my MCL like a month and a half ago, and that motherfucker still hurts if I step wrong.
Yeah, and like I remember I blew out my hamstring playing cricket, which is just embarrassing because it's the most chilled out sport ever. But like there are points where you're chasing after the ball like over 30 yards, and I just like my hamstring just blew out. I couldn't walk on it for 6 weeks. So Travis Kelce had the same injury was out for 2 weeks, and didn't look the same when he came back. So whether Sam Laporta plays or not, he's still carrying that injury. Amon-Ra St. Brown is like probably got a bruised rib, like which you can play with, but you're not going to have the same. Like
he'll probably be fine out of all of them. He'll be the one that affects the least.
Like he'll play, but he's not got the same range of movement that he had before. And obviously, everybody going into the playoffs is carrying injuries. But like Dan Campbell he's done them a disservice in that Week 18, and it was for nothing because the Cowboys ended up winning, which is what everybody thought was going to happen anyway. So you bet against them, you bet against it, and I think the final nail in the coffin for this point, where Dan Campbell just threw his toys out the pram, and yes, it should have never happened. What happened to the Lions in terms of the refereeing call, it should have never happened. But he's clearly holding on to it way too much, and it's coming out in so many different ways in Detroit. That fucking on 1st and 10, throwing the ball to Dan Skipper, who was also the 70 who the referees said had reported. So you didn't even throw it to 68. You threw it to 70 for a 5-yard completion on 1st and 10 in the middle of the field just to say, haha, fuck you, NFL. Is like, what kind of pettiness is that to like put into your team? Like, that's so strange. So strange to me. But yeah, I've got the Rams in this one. Give me the Rams. And I think it could go towards blowout, to be perfectly honest.
And the over-under is 51.5. I will take the over on that game.
I'll take the under on that game, I think. Because I don't think... Because I think the Rams will play such situational.
You think that... So, but by that each team scores 26 points, you already break that.
Yeah, but I just think the Rams get up by... So the Rams get up by 7, they just run the ball. Like, through Kyren Williams, short pass. I think the Rams will go for long drives rather than mega points, you know.
All right. Well, to the odd Monday Night Football wild card weekend playoff game that they started a year back. They started a year back for Super Wild Card Weekend, and I still hate the name, so I'm still going to make fun of it. Super Wild Card Weekend. The Eagles are traveling to the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are 3-point dogs at home. The Eagles are favored by 3. I thought the Eagles were going to use their last 3 games to snap out of their funk. They have not. I have no faith in what's going on in Philadelphia right now. They have lost me, and I was probably their biggest cheerleader outside of any of their fans this year. And they have proved me to be completely wrong. I thought they would snap out of it all. I think Tampa wins this game. So give me the Bucs +3. Plus, again, in the last 8 times in the playoffs that the home team was a dog, they beat the spread. So give me Tampa +3 in this game.
Were the Tampa not a dog when they played against the Cowboys last year at home? Well, they will have been, but they could have covered the spread. They could have just been a much bigger dog.
Right. They would have covered the spread. Right. Yeah. So being it's a 3-point spread, I think they still win. But I said because they always seem to cover the spread now, give me Tampa.
That makes sense.
+3. I think Tampa wins this game. I think the Eagles are dead. I think Jason Kelce retires too if they get bounced in this game.
Obviously, another team that just something that I addressed in the show last night, but I just want to reiterate because I've seen a few more comments about it from a few people. Just a reminder that the Eagles were 24-0 down by halftime after playing their starters for pretty much the whole first half, apart from one drive.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to hear that they beat our fucking second and third string. I let Hitman get away with it because I love that dude, and he's a diehard Eagles fan, and I'm sure he's already feeling a certain way, so I didn't comment. But that is some bullshit. Like they were getting walked. Just a reminder. Starters. They got walked the game. They lost the game before. They barely beat the Giants the week before that. Like they have not. I thought this is the 3 weeks to snap out of your fucking rut, and they didn't.
Yeah, and I don't want to hold too much stock in a Week 18 game where, yes, by halftime it's the second stringers. So would I have been surprised if the Eagles all of a sudden scored 27 points on the Giants to win in the second half? Like, wouldn't be totally shocked from their play that they've done this year. I actually would have been shocked, to be perfectly honest. But just to add to this, in that game, AJ Brown goes off injured, and he is playing. Like he is playing. But again, like I don't care what your injury is. week to week, like an injury is going to affect you the week after you've got it if it's made you leave the game. And they were probably being conservative with him. If it was a more important game, he probably would have came in and played in the second half. Like, I get it. Like, I understand that, but his full range of movement isn't going to be there. Jalen Hurts mangled his middle finger on his throwing arm.
Oh, it looked
on his
nasty.
right hand.
Fuck.
Yeah, his middle finger. And I'm watching things and I'm like, have people forgotten what's happened here? Like, have people not seen? And I said it a million times going into that game, and I almost feel sorry for the Eagles, but not really. But like, I said it. I was like, right, you're relying on the Cowboys to lose to the Commanders, which I don't think many people thought was going to happen. At points, it did look like it wasn't going the Cowboys' way. A few bad bounces of the ball and a terrible interception and all of that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, like all of a sudden it looked like it might not go the Cowboys' way, but then they started to pull out in the second quarter and keep it going. So fine. But you're betting on the Cowboys losing when your entire problem, I do agree that their entire problem was that hard run in the schedule that they had. And then coming off the back of that, they then get smoked by the 49ers. They get pretty handily defeated by the Cowboys as well. And then they have to go up to Seattle, which isn't an easy place to play either. Then you lose, then you play badly in the game against the Giants. You lose against the Cardinals. Do you not think just some rest might have been like a forced bye for some of their better players would have been the way to go against the Giants? Like, because we can't say that Dan Campbell should have rested his players and not say that Nick Sirianni should have rested his players as well. Like, Jalen Hurts should have sat that game. Jalen Hurts, there was no need for him to play in that game because he's been carrying an injury all year. And I don't care what the injury report says. Jalen Hurts has been carrying an injury all year. It's obvious. Like, or he's not got over an injury he had earlier in the season. And Sirianni hasn't made it easy, or whoever's calling the offensive plays at the moment in Philadelphia, they haven't made it easy for Jalen Hurts this year at any point. The brain drain, look, like, I don't think Sirianni should lose his job. I think if they lose against Tampa, he gets put on the hot seat for next season. Like, but I don't think he loses his job going into the next season.
I think
like,
it's
he's got winning seasons, has made the playoffs.
I think it's wild that people say that he went from going to the Super Bowl to making it back to the playoffs, and people are talking about the guy's job. It's wild to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if he loses against Tampa, then you can say he's on the hot seat for next season. But I do think he should take, if he was calling the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball, but as I understand it, he comes from a more offensive background. So if he's calling plays on the offensive side of the ball, if your young head coach is calling plays, the brain drain in losing both of your coordinators isn't as big of a problem because at least you have the head coach on the other side of the ball. So I do think he is partly to blame for that. And I want my young head coach to be calling plays, to be perfectly honest. There's only a few guys who I think could be CEOs, but they should have been resting players to go into this game. There's no reason for Jalen Hurts to have a mangled middle finger. And on top of that, the Bucs also looked terrible against the Panthers. Just a reminder as to how bad they looked. And Baker Mayfield went off limping off the field because he's busted a rib or some crazy shit like that as well. So the Bucs aren't exactly in the best health.
The difference for me though isn't the play we saw. It's like, I think the Eagles are drained. I think they're done. I don't think they have it in them.
Yeah. I think that I agree with that.
With a fucking fire up his ass. Like,
yeah.
Baker wants to prove everybody wrong. I don't know what the Eagles' motivation is. And like you said, we saw Jalen's finger. That's going to affect shit. And he hasn't been as accurate as we've seen in the past this year. And you get AJ Brown dinged up. They haven't been playing great. I just don't see their path to victory in this game. I don't see it.
Yeah. What's at least, even when you're playing badly, I want to be able to see that your team has a plan, an identity. And I don't see that from the Eagles on either side of the ball. When the Bucs play, I know it's right. Whenever we can get Mike Evans one-on-one, that's where the ball is going. And Mike Evans has probably had one of his best years in the league this year. Baker Mayfield is a tough guy who is always going to play up with a fire up his ass. Like, I think back to the game the two games, which were basically playoff games for the Browns, that they played against the Steelers, where they lose that first game to the Steelers going into the playoffs. So then the Browns have to play a road game in Pittsburgh, and Baker comes out and just smokes them, like in that undefeated Steelers team that went on a bit of a tear. But Baker comes out and smokes them. And I think if the Eagles fall behind, they'll fall apart again because they don't have an identity to fall back on. They're not running the ball as much as they should do. Like, their fundamentals seem to have gone out of the window since the 26th of November win against the Bills. And that should be a worry for them. And I think that the Eagles are going to lose this game. I think Tampa are going to obviously cover the spread as well, which means I think we might have agreed for every game in the playoffs so far.
We could have.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Not confident in the Eagles.
I am excited for the playoffs. I just can't believe it's playoff season already.
Yeah. I can't wait for them this year. I think I'm very excited for them. Cynthia's going away to Poland, so I don't have to worry about waking her up at 3 a.m. in the morning, shouting and screaming about the Cowboys' overtime win against the Packers or anything like that. So that's good. So I can really sit in and watch the full thing, and I'm excited about it. I like playoff time.
I realized you just don't sleep, so that's okay.
Yeah, just from Friday to Tuesday, I just don't really sleep.
I'll get a message though, and I'll look at my clock and I'll do the math, and I'll be like, "It's 4 a.m. What the fuck is he doing up at 4 a.m?
I just love football, man. This is the pluses from working from home as well. Like, I can literally roll out of bed, open the laptop, and be at work. And just sink a couple of coffees.
It's also the pluses of being in your 20s.
Yeah, I'm also 2 years ahead. I'm also 2 years ahead, 2 hours ahead of the UK where I do work. So at least I can wake up at 11. Like, well, everybody at the moment is working in all over the world, but we kind of go by a UK clock kind of deal. So I can wake up at 11 and they've not noticed that I've not been awake doing anything because I can sleep till 11 or even 12. And they've not really noticed I've not done anything. Because I can just say, "Oh, like, I started an hour late today," and because I'm starting at 10, not at 12, in my mind anyway.
Yeah, your internal clock has to be all fucked up from all of your traveling.
It's a fucking mess, man. Well, it's more that the NFL season just fucks me up. Like,
well, yeah,
I'm coming out just as tired as the players.
You're always changing like time zones, and it's not little changes. Like, you'll go from being 6 hours different to 12 hours different.
Oh yeah. No, like that's no joke, by the way. That time hour difference, that 12-hour one, is a real fucking, like, that's a pain for watching quite a lot of football. It's great for our podcasting, weirdly. Like, it's weirdly easy for the podcasting, but for actually watching. I am not a morning person.
So like nighttime works better for me. So like if we're doing it at 10 o'clock my time at night, it's 10 a.m. for you. And yeah, it
just perfect for me, 10 a.m. because then I can do the show and then get on with the rest of my day then as well. And it's quite nice. I do all my revision for the show the night before, but I can't watch any of the games. So I have to watch the games in other ways, which becomes way more difficult.
All right, guys. Well, let us know what you think. Let us know where you think we're wrong in the comments. Week 18's over. You can go back to betting.
Get betting. We're right on this one. I feel very confident this week in our bets. I feel way more confident in our
wild card weekend. I usually go 500. I usually nail one day and get the other day completely wrong, or vice versa. So we'll see what happens this year.
I just feel confident this week. I think they've given us nice betting lines. Actually, like, if the Bills were at 7 and the Cowboys were at 10, I wouldn't feel as confident in my picks, if you know what I mean. But I feel like the Cowboys will win by 8 and the Bills will lose by the Cowboys will win by 8 and the Bills will win by probably about 8 as well. And so if they gave us 7 and 7, I'd be worried about both of those picks. 7 and 10.
If they gave us 7 and 7, we'd both be drunk. I don't know if you guys drink Seagram 7 and 7 Up over there, but you know.
No, but I know what it is because again, America is the cultural hotspot of the entire world. So, you know, I know what 7 and 7 is. I watch Friends.
Don't start with that because you and I and that whole famous fucking people and yeah. Oh, all right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. We will recap this week and any more information that comes out because I am sure we are not done. We will get 1 or 2 more coaches firings before this is all over, and we'll have more playoffs to talk about and other rumors around the league. And maybe if we get time, we'll talk about Pat McAfee kicking Aaron Rodgers off of his show.
Yeah, crazy. But let's talk more about that another time.
Yes. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. One world, one love. Deuces.
Cheerio.